In this video lesson, we'll explore the westward movement of the people of the United States and discuss the background of the immigrants that were coming from Europe. In this map that you can see here on the front page, this shows the westward movement of the center of population of the United States from 1790 to 2010. If you take the time to read the information here and to see where each triangle is corresponding to date, you can see that the center of the population is gradually moved westward all the way up until the year 2010. The rise of Andrew Jackson, the first president from beyond the Appalachian Mountains, showed that the westward march of the American people was continuing. The West was a very raw frontier and was the most typically American part of America. The Republic and the people were very young. As late as 1850, half of Americans were under the age of 30. By 1840, the demographic center of the American population map had crossed the Allegheny Mountains, and by the Civil War, it had crossed the Ohio River. Legend portraying men carving civilization out of the western woods was false, as in reality, life was downright grim for most of the pioneer families in the West. They were poorly fed, ironclad, housed in very quickly erected shanties, and were constant victims of disease, depression, and premature death. Unbearable loneliness haunted them, especially the women who were often cut off from human contact. We'll discuss this painting representing manifest destiny called American Progress in class. Frontier life could be tough and very crude for the men as well. There was a no-holds-barred wrestling sport that was participated in as popular entertainment. Pioneering Americans, who were quite often marooned by geography, were often ill-informed, very superstitious, very provincial, and fiercely individualistic. Popular literature of the period abounded with portraits of unique, isolated figures like Melville's restless Captain Ahab. Even in the era of rugged individualism, there were important exceptions. Pioneers, in tasks beyond their resources, would call upon their neighbors for log rolling and barn raising, and upon their government for help in building internal improvements like roads and canals. The westward movement also molded the physical environment. Pioneers in a hurry often exhausted the land in the tobacco regions and then moved west. In the Kentucky bottomlands, tall cane posed a barrier, but settlers soon discovered that when the cane was burned off, European bluegrass thrived in the cane fields. This Kentucky bluegrass, shown here in this picture, made ideal pasture for livestock and lured thousands of people west. The American West felt the pressure of civilization in other ways as well. By the 1820s, American fur trappers were in the Rocky Mountain regions, and the fur trapping empire was based on the rendezvous system. Each summer, traders ventured from St. Louis, Missouri, to the Rocky Mountain Valley and waited for the trappers and Indians to arrive with beaver pelts to swap for manufactured goods from the East. The trade thrived for 2 decades before the beaver hats went out of style and there were fewer beavers to hunt. Trade in buffalo robbers also flourished, leading eventually to the virtual total annihilation of the massive bison herds. Farther west, on the California coast, other traders bought up sea otter pelts, driving otters to the point of near extinction. Aggressive, heedless exploitation of the Western's natural boundaries was called ecological imperialism. Yet Americans in this period also revered nature and admired its beauty. The spirit of nationalism fed the growing appreciation of the uniqueness of the American wilderness. As Americans moved west, they also multiplied at an amazing rate. By mid-century, the population was still doubling and approximately every 25 years. By 1860, the original 13 states had more than doubled in number. 33 stars graced the American flag, and the United States was the fourth most populous nation in the Western world, exceeded only by 3 European countries, Russia, France, and Austria. European growth continued explosively. In 1790, only 2 American cities, Philadelphia and New York, had populations of 20,000 or more, but by 1860, at the beginning of the Civil War, there were 43 cities that had such population. Such over-rapid urbanization unfortunately brought undesirable byproducts. It intensified the problems of the smelly slums of the growing cities, feeble street lighting, inadequate policing, impure water, foul sewage, ravenous rats, and improper garbage disposal. All of these problems would eventually need to be tackled as the urban cities grew and developed. A continuing high birth rate accounted for most of the increase in population, but by the 1840s, the tides of immigration were adding hundreds of thousands more. Before this decade, immigrants had been flowing in at a rate of 6,000 a year, but suddenly the influx tripled in the 1840s and then quadrupled in the 1850s. During these 2 feverish decades, over 1.5 million Irish and nearly as many Germans swarmed down the gangplanks and came to America. Why did they come? The immigrants came partly because Europe seemed to be running out of room. Europe grew, and surplus people who were displaced in their homelands before they felt the tug of the American magnet. Nearly 60 million people abandoned Europe in the century after 1840, and about 25 million went somewhere other than the United States. Yet Americans still beckoned most strongly to the struggling masses of Europe, and the majority of migrants headed for the land of freedom and opportunity, which is what America had become known as. There was freedom from aristocratic caste and state church. There was abundant opportunity to secure broad acres, which meant a large area of land, and to better one's condition. Letters sent by immigrants, often called American letters, or America letters, often described in glowing terms the richer life. There was low taxes, no compulsory military service, and 3 meat meals a day. These letters, received by people in Europe, caused more people to want to come to America. The introduction of the transoceanic steamships also meant that the immigrants could come speedily, in a matter of 10 or 12 days, as opposed to what used to be 10 or 12 weeks. We'll continue to talk about the immigrants as they came to the United States and the struggles they faced as we continue to view their experience in class.